on what was it? Dell the Ball, or what's the guy's
no.
name? Yeah, I went on his channel.
Why?
Went on Dell's channel because Andy told me to go.
I'm like,
And he
why?
was like, "Hey, you know how he does that stupid like smirk face? Andy does. He like puts the smirk emoji. Fucking
Yeah.
asshole.
He's so ridiculous.
He's like, you should go on Dell's. He smirk face. Like,
So did you actually go on there and speak, or what did you do?
Yeah. I was. I got in there. I was like, "Hey, what's up, Dell? I just came here because like I want to know why the hell you guys believe this shit."
Beyond the imaginary elevator Earth.
Yeah, I was like, man, this is. I just told him, I was like, this is like completely excluded from the possibilities, and I want to know why you guys keep talking about it, and then I just kind of explained why, and I let him yell at me for a while because he didn't like that. He didn't like what I said.
Of course not.
And then I don't know, it's yada yada reality, and I don't know what else he said. But then he calmed down. I was like, okay,
Why
look,
you
I just want to know what you
laughing?
believe.
I mean, I don't know why you guys think it's a joke.
Oh no.
Because
what's wrong?
okay,
Yeah,
tell
but
me this.
stationary Earth, Stacey. What?
Tell me
Have you
this.
thought about it?
I get it is stationary.
What is
See,
neutral
you
buoyancy?
think it's stationary. Like, doesn't mean it is.
What is neutral buoyancy? What is
Wait,
it?
Rick, so did you have a whole conversation with him? Or wait.
Yeah, it was like a good 15 minutes maybe. He got a phone call and he had to leave. They were like,
Did he explain to you?
Abort, Riggs knows what he's talking about. Abort.
Right. So he did not explain to you how his elevator Earth works and
he
how
did
it's
have to leave all of a
correct.
sudden. He had to end the stream.
So I didn't show you
How does
nothing.
stationary Earth work?
Oh my god, exactly how it's working.
It's just stationary. Stationary. So
It's just stationary.
see what you've done is instead of actually accepting critique, you've tried to push a burden on me of which I don't claim to know. But what I can do is look at the options and say, okay, well, it's probably not this. So instead of reversing the burden, why don't we just address the point? Do you know what neutral buoyancy is in your understanding of the Earth? What is that?
Did you get what he's talking about with the two vectors?
Yes.
So you got the lateral vector.
Yes. What is neutral buoyancy?
And you missed the vertical. Everyone misses the vertical. Like, why does the air bubble go up? Let's start there.
Yeah, you've reversed the burden again.
Anti-gravity, right? An air bubble is an anti-gravity machine, right? It's going up always. So that's the opposite direction to gravity.
Man, it's so hard when people don't want to follow. They don't want to follow, man. They tell me I don't get it.
Follow the logic. Why does the air bubble rise?
Don't know. Don't claim to know.
Right. Well, think about it. Because it's what you guys are in is embarrassing.
Okay, but he answered you.
Laugh and mock.
Merl, he answered you.
He'll start making fun of you.
No, he's not making fun of you at all. He actually was very nice and answered you. Then he asked you 4 times a question. If you don't have the he asked you and you didn't answer him.
It doesn't work like that, Stacey.
Yeah, it does work that way, hun.
You don't have the intellectual capacity to even enter into this conversation. That's the
Oh,
truth.
no, you did not.
Yeah, let's go. Let's unpack it then,
Oh my God, Merl, you are disrespectful little brat right now.
From the ground up. Don't run away.
We're not going to do that this morning, honey.
What are we going to do, Stacey? Just mock and laugh.
You're going to be nice.
And throw mud. That's what you're not being nice. You're being passive aggressive.
Because I asked if you can answer his question because he answered yours?
Stacey, you don't have anything. You have a belief system in La La Land. That's the truth.
Merl, I have not said a damn word to you besides why aren't you answering his question? Because
okay, Merl, please take it off Stacey for a second. I did ask you a question in good faith. I just want to know. I'm not going to accuse you of anything. I want to know, in your understanding, what is neutral buoyancy? It's not a trick question. I just want to know what you think it is.
Neutral buoyancy is just that. The word neutral is just that. Okay? You've got 2 words. Now what?
Oh, never mind. Never mind.
Right. So neutral is neutral. Buoyancy is buoyancy. Now what?
I'm gonna go get my second cup of
Stationary
coffee
Earth.
and ponder on that one for
Stationary
y'all.
Earth is the
I can't.
floor of the universe in mumbo jumbo land. These guys.
My intellectual side needs a break.
So maybe you can just say what neutral buoyancy is.
Yeah, go on, Rig.
Yeah, so in this regard, it's essentially the homeostasis, the balance between two different forces acting on each other, to the point where there's essentially no force measured.
Buoyancy and gravity?
Right. So buoyancy in this gravitational force, which I would agree it's a force because I don't, I'm not, relativistic or anything like that. So if I had a balloon and it's just hovering, then there's enough action from the balloon in order to fight off whatever the gravitational effect is. Okay? So
Floating.
if I'm canceling out the gravitational effect and it's applying its own force up and it's stationary, or it appears to be stationary, let's put it that way, then it is neutrally buoyant. It has found homeostasis.
Hey Riggs, this is Jason.
Yo.
Hey, what's up? Hey, I did hear you on Dells, and you did good. You kept your cool for the most part. I was impressed. I liked it. But as far as what you were saying with the neutral buoyant, so that's basically where the density and the gravity, equilibrize, right? Equilibrize, and so, but in the upward paradigm, there's still a force from the bottom keeping it like the it's equilibrizing because the force on the bottom is equal to the density, basically holding it down. So there's still a force upward on the object.
Right. Well, my only goal is to ensure that no matter what the density is of that balloon and anything that's attached to the balloon, my only goal is to make sure that it is at homeostasis, that it is not going neither up nor down. It is neutrally buoyant
But if the Earth is moving up, then it's still moving up.
with the Earth, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
But so that means there still is a force. Just as there's a force underneath your feet going up, there's a force on the bottom of the balloon going up.
No problem. Doesn't affect the issue at all whatsoever.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So if I'm on cruise control in a vehicle at 22 miles an hour, because you guys claiming that the Earth is rising up, not accelerating, but just moving upwards at 22 miles an hour, 9.8 meters per second. Velocity. You guys like to say it.
To make it known, I am not 100% on that right now.
Okay. Well, it's the best option you guys have because the acceleration is totally fucked. So let's go with constant.
I'm not sure that that's fucked either, but
it's super fucked. Let's just go with the constant though. It's your best option.
Okay.
Now, if it's constant, then and I can create neutral buoyancy on Earth anywhere, then I can replicate what you guys are claiming is happening. I can replicate it. One for one in a different vector. Which is great. Which means we can test it.
I don't agree that you can get rid of that upward vector. In the horizontal.
That's what neutral buoyancy is.
But you still have a force underneath.
Doesn't matter because what we're trying to measure isn't up or down anyway. It's left and right.
Yeah, but if you have a force from underneath, you have to overcome that force to do anything in any other direction, period.
No, it's overcome by the balloon's gas.
But it's still
air bubbles rising.
No, it still has a force from underneath. If it didn't have the force from underneath, what would it do?
If it didn't have the force from underneath?
Right. If it didn't have something pushing it up, like when it's neutrally buoyant, It just hovers in air, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what makes it hover in air?
It's the balance between gravity
That is
and
the
the gas.
gravity, which is the upward force. So it still has an upward force from the bottom.
I'm having trouble disseminating your use of up and down and left and right and all this. Like, we know what we're talking about. There's gravity, and then there's the buoyant force. Okay, and they've equalized at a certain point. Homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
No,
so
it's
continue.
half air and half helium.
What?
Don't lie.
What?
It's half air, half helium.
Which is fine. I don't care what it is as long as it's neutrally buoyant. I don't care if it's a rubber ducky. I don't care what it
Well, you
is.
should. Well, you should because you
No.
sound like an idiot.
I haven't said anything stupid yet.
Oh, yes, you have.
This is weird.
If you have a balloon,
They stand just this way. The only reason I'm a bit triggered is because they mock it all the time.
I can exclude it from a possibility, which means you need to learn why it's not making sense and then move away from it. But if you're from a dogmatic position, dude. If I could show you for a fact, like it absolutely could not be this, would you want to know?
Sure.
Okay,
Because
then listen.
Because the whole community, as you well know, when it comes down to it and there's an opportunity to join and have the discussion and unpack it, no one joins. Now that's
I'm
a
there.
huge red
I'm here.
flag.
It's not hard to disprove, but it does take a little bit of wrapping around your head. It's really easy to disprove, actually, because what you're doing is you're confusing constant rate for acceleration in all of your demonstrations. All the stuff through execute or execate or whatever that guy's name is, and all the stuff on Level-Headed Williams channel, they're all using acceleration to demonstrate the constant rate, which is not the same. Two different actions. So they're using the acceleration of dropping something or the acceleration of moving something left and right quickly and watching things separate and stratify, right? They're using acceleration to demonstrate that the Earth is constantly moving up and that the action would have to be different for some reason. Well, yeah, it would have to be different because you shouldn't be accelerating. If the vessel was going at a constant rate, then things would have already had been stratified or at rest before you began observing. So if I'm on cruise control in my car and I'm going 22 miles an hour in whatever the fuck direction, and I'm holding a neutrally buoyant object that's floating, and I let go in that car, it doesn't move to the back of the vehicle. The same way that if I'm rising upwards at 22 miles an hour, and anything within the air or around me, if I jump up, I will float in the air, but I will move with the Earth. There's literally no reason that I would go back down to the bottom of the Earth.
hey Riggs, if you have the balloon floating in the car, if you were to try to move the balloon downward, does that require a force?
It depends on how you move it, I guess.
No,
I don't know.
the only way to get that balloon to move is to require a force. So if it's floating in the air, there's already a force acting on it. If you have to push it down to make it go down. If you have to apply a force to make it
Or
go
you
down,
could
then
take
that
some of the
means there's a
gas out.
which is just changing the relationship. Which
Yeah,
I think
changing the
will make it go
relationship.
up. Right.
Yep.
So basically, it's floating because it's the push. The air underneath it is pushing it up. So there is a force there underneath it. So in order to change the direction, you have to. It requires a force in another direction. That's why. That's why it's not.
Doesn't
It's not the same
this isn't
horizontally.
problematic. It's
It
not
is because you
problematic,
have.
man.
No, it is because then you have to. To overcome that force from underneath, it requires a force from the side. Like you can't overcome that force without another force.
That balloon is neutrally buoyant. You would essentially have no weight on that balloon. Okay? Literally have no weight. So the only thing that you should observe when you're driving forward is this quote unquote deceleration to the back of the vehicle, which doesn't happen. The whole vessel's moving together at one speed. Okay? Because if the balloon were going up or down, that would essentially be as if I was dropping a ball off a building and the ball went left and right. Left and right doesn't matter. The only reason I want it neutrally buoyant is so that it stays steady while I'm observing it. That's it. Because if I drop a ball off a building, watching go left and right doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care if it goes left or right. It's just, it matters which direction it goes. If it goes down to the floor, then you say, okay, that's gravity. Or in your case, you want to say that it's because the Earth's rising up. Well, guess what? If I hold a balloon in a car and it doesn't go up or down, which doesn't matter anyway, and it doesn't go to the back of the vehicle, then it wouldn't fall on your model because the air is moving with the ground at a constant rate. There's nothing to decelerate from because it's all moving as one.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's the only way it can be. Now, it's hard to wrap your head around it because it is a somewhat disorienting topic, and a lot of people won't engage with it because they mock it and they don't give it the time of day, and a lot of people don't spend time thinking about stuff like that. But it is the case. There is literally no cause for what you're claiming the effect is, and I guarantee you every last example you guys have to support your arguments is using acceleration, not constant velocity. And that is why you're getting stratification.
Right. But that's kind of where I'm on the fence with the constant or being in acceleration.
But then it begs the question, why did you even support the idea in the first place? Because your best argument was the constant rate and these phenomena at all. That's your best argument. If you don't have that, then it's kind of like Wile E. Coyote standing off the cliff. It's like, this is a weird idea.
No, with an acceleration, there's definitely cause for it. Like that would be if it is accelerating up, and if you go by the laws of motion, an acceleration up, and you believe like in a vacuum, with an acceleration up, whenever you let go of the object, it just remains at a constant speed until the acceleration of the Earth catches up to it. If it is an acceleration.
Well, does the car catch up to the balloon?
At a constant speed or at acceleration?
Let me jump in for a sec. So, stationary Earth, what causes density and buoyancy on a stationary Earth?
Some sort of invisible force that acts on all matter at all times.
So they don't know. Now that was the problem with it for years.
Well,
okay.
Do you physically, visibly see electricity run through your wires, or does it act through the wires all at once?
So you're saying in all the years the stationary Earth put its flag down in the ground, the cause for density and buoyancy, why things apparently downward accelerate, just like the globe, it's not accounted for, is it? Dell's the person who's highlighted these points, and you guys run.
No one's claimed to know what they are, but we're also not going to assert things that are wrong.
Real quick, just to clarify, because I can't really talk, I'm in traffic, but what causes density and buoyancy, I don't know if that's the right way of asking it, because density is just like the amount of mass, right? So the cause of that would be like more mass, right? Like if it's denser or whatever, there's more of that weight. So everything has an equilibrium, and there's just a natural up and down, and maybe there's a tendency or a preference of down from this electrostatics. We could argue about that. But I mean, if there's just a universal up and down, I mean, that's just the law of the world we live in. But the problem with the upward Earth, as far as like the atmosphere and everything being pushed up, like it would have to be like this, like you're kind of treating it like a solid, and that's not the way the molecules work. You know, that
So how does electromagnetism cause buoyancy?
Well, okay, Dave.
no, it's not the cause, but I mean, go ahead, you got to handle.
I mean, they're saying the whole bubble is moving together. So whether the air is a solid or not, it's still being contained as if it's like the inside of a car. It's a container. The Earth's a container, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, but it's got the same problems with like calling the atmosphere like a container in the car. It wouldn't work the same because if you have one reference frame of all the air enclosed, right? You're not talking about, it wouldn't be the same as the atmosphere being dragged along with the movement of the Earth, and that's the same way. So it's kind of that fallacy.
Because part of the problem for you guys is motion can practically demonstrate this, but if you could demonstrate like getting some electricity and a magnet and show like that affecting buoyant, I mean that hasn't been done yet.
It's
No, you
they
haven't.
flip the polarity, and Whitsid and other people have like air molecules and different materials, and when they flip the polarity,
Van de Graaff.
No, that's not
it's
anywhere near.
demonstratable. Why
No, it's not though. It's not.
You want to
So-
watch the video?
Yeah, there was a guy called Good Times for All who was experimenting with this. It's not even close, mate.
Why you're just denying a demonstration? You can question it. That's fine, but
Yeah,
straight
no,
up
get it
denying
out. Like if you can demonstrate like a whole density gradient with electromagnetism, we're all ears and eyes. Let's go.
Hey, is Fundy here, by the way? Is he listening or just here?
But I think there's two things, like density and mass or whatever, and this electrostatic thing. I think there's two things at play. But yeah, it's called incoherent electrostatic acceleration. One sec, let me get the video.
Well, I won't even go that far. I don't know if it is intrinsically this. I'm not even sure they completely understand it, the electrostatics thing. But I do know that one thing has to happen, and that there is a flow of energy from the top to the bottom. I don't know in what form or exactly how, but I do know that electricity is invisible. Okay? We use it, and it is invisible.
What makes you think you understand it though, Riggs? Like because you watched a Ken Wheeler video.
No.
Do you got a magnet? Do you even own a magnet?
I don't own a magnet.
There you go. Do you own electricity?
Yeah. I don't even have a calculator.
Have it like harnessed a lightning bolt?
Where's my dictionary? Where did you guys take my dictionary?
It's not a
all
good
you
way
guys
of
claim
pushing.
like to understand electromagnetics. Most of it you rip off Ken Wheeler. That's what Dice Flow does.
Okay. Well, I'm right here. If you could stop addressing people who aren't here, or Stacy, or some other,
Yeah,
just
but we're not
address,
getting
just
anywhere with
engage
you.
with the points
You
that
had
I'm
the
saying,
conversation
Mel.
last night, and you couldn't even remember what you even talked about.
Oh man.
What do you mean? I don't remember what we talked about. What are you talking about?
It's insulting.
We talked about all this. What do you mean?
It's insulting, and this is why this group gets called a cult.
What's insulting?
Right, anyway.
The fact that you're not engaging and just insulting us, that's insulting?
You deserve it.
And people can learn without having a magnet if they understand how magnets work and have used a magnet in their life once or twice or whatever, or maybe a few more than once or twice then. And they can understand by looking and someone explaining to them about a magnet and what it's doing. This is ridiculous kind of conversation to address each other. Like, seriously.
Yeah, well, where do magnets put their batteries?
Where
do magnets put their batteries, Mel?
Is when he wouldn't have the foggiest. He's read a few citations. You guys are like clutching at straws as usual. You've got your cult
Nobody's
leaders.
clutching at anything.
Oh, yes, you are.
At least I got straws to clutch, bro.
Riggs was just telling you his interpretation and going down with you. Only Riggs. He wasn't mentioning anybody else's names. It was no cult. It was just conversation between you and Riggs. That was it.
It's an internet click, and you're passive aggressive, and you're mocking something that's
What are you
serious and on the
talking about?
table. And you've done it time and time again. And when it comes time to actually
Riggs,
have the
no,
conversation,
did not do that.
crickets.
No, you know what? Riggs could have done that. He did not do that
I
this
went
time. In
on the
fact, he was very
show.
polite to you.
He turned the stream off. I went on the
When I
show.
Let's not
first
do
got
this.
here, you were going, Elevator Earth, ha ha ha, all having a laugh about
That
it.
was in the beginning, and that was Geo. That was not Riggs, and it was funny because people can take jokes. Okay, we are past that. It was a good conversation. You were Riggs are it's what's happening, and then next thing you know, it's this, and then I'm getting all worked up. Why? Because it turns to emotional meta shit, and it's not even about the conversation anymore. Why are we attacking each other? It was a conversation, Merle.
It's not a conversation because you guys aren't being honest. And when you're put under the spotlight for how
About
honest
what?
you are, we smell your
No.
bullshit.
About what?
This
What
is
am I not
fact.
being honest about? This is another time of being called a liar. What am I lying about?
Okay, so why does the air bubble rise, Rig? It's going the other direction to gravity.
Because of its buoyant property. It is less dense than whatever medium it's surrounded with. Right?
Mumbo jumbo. So motion.
What? Bubbles
Yeah.
rise
Motion.
because they're more buoyant than the shit around it. Like what? What am I?
Why is the air bubble going in the opposite direction to the apparent downward bias
He just answered
your
you.
mumbo jumbo land apparently has?
Look,
He
I
just-
think whatever the
He
cause
answered.
is, whatever the force is, which I agree that there would be a force. Okay, it is causing the stratification and allowing the different densities to sort. That is what causes these buoyant properties. Whatever the force is, I don't claim to know what the force is, but I can indicate the reasons why they're sorting based on their relative properties, their mass, their density, whatever. There's different properties about them, but I don't know the cause. I don't claim to know the cause.
Yeah, man.
Is there a
just
problem
trying
with
to
that?
figure things out. Why are you getting so hostile at us?
Nobody was claiming anything that you're claiming.
Us because an internet click deserves to get rumbled every
Bro,
now and
dude,
again.
you're so
doesn't
hung
it?
up in click shit, man. Oh my god.
No.
Look, I'm being
I'm
as
not
humble
what's
as
happening.
I'm being
I
as humble
know
as I
what's
could possibly
happening.
be with the shit that I know.
Who do you think you're talking to? I know what's happening.
Okay.
Okay?
No,
Sorry.
there's no
I've been
click here.
scoping all these servers for years of who's
Okay,
genuine,
Merle, let's not
who's
do this
at
this
it, who
morning.
isn't. Right? You guys are at it
Okay.
right now. Okay?
Okay,
All right.
what's
Now
your
don't
guess
pretend
not
it's
then?
do
me
this.
that's being hostile
Right,
for
well-
no reason when you guys are lying.
I'm not
What's your
gonna
guess?
pull up on you,
Disingenuous
Merle.
and being insulting and rude.
I know there's a bunch of people in here, and I'm realizing that you probably feel ganged up. I'm just gonna pull back. I'm sorry.
Yep. Pull back.
Well, I'm here to like learn other people's opinions. So what's your guess? What? I know. Are we talking about why things fall down? I don't even know what we're talking about.
I sum it up.
By the way, just real quick to clear the record, I don't ever mock the idea of an upward rising Earth. That's not what I did make one joke earlier, but I was just fusing his name, the Beyond the Imaginary Curve, and just replacing that with Upward Elevator Earth. So I'm just saying I made that one little joke, but I'm just saying I don't like regularly mock anyone, let alone that idea. We've talked about it a million times on here. I mean, I have my viewpoints on it, and all of that, but I'm just saying if you took that one joke, it was just one. I just made a one joke on it, but. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, Esel come in here and call it retarded. So, I mean, everyone has different viewpoints. You know, like he's called it
well,
multiple times. So, I mean, everyone's got their different things on it. But, yeah,
Well, he seems so passionate about it, so I'm curious to what he thinks.
electricity, because Globers claim gravity, this magic force from inside the Earth, a center point, pulls everything down. That's our claim. Theory of gravity.
I was
We call
asking
it-
woke up.
Then the flat earthers say it's just a natural gradient that God created it that way up, and that's the way it is. It could be related to electrostatics or magnetism, different things that we're still looking into. But then there's another group of flat earthers that say we need to explain why things go down. Maybe the whole realm is going up. So
I was
every time you drop something, the Earth is coming up to meet it.
I was asking woke up because he's
That's
like
three
he's
theories.
sweating us, but
Three
he's
theories.
not providing any solutions or anything.
I think he's
Well,
saying
part
my
of the
solution's better than yours.
Part of the solution is if you require a force and a cause, you have something called motion, because matter, inanimate matter, like a rock or a glass, can't move itself. Okay? So this is part of the reason I get frustrated, is because it's been demonstrated that when you let something go, there is no downward acceleration. Now, this has been demonstrated several times by different human beings in different locations of the earth. Videoed, it's out there. But
No
people don't
downward
know what to do.
acceleration. No downward acceleration.
Yeah,
I'm
no
just-
downward
what do you mean
acceleration
by that?
being detected. So the mainstream says that there's a downward acceleration, a pulling force towards the center of the earth, just like Dawn just said.
That's two different
Okay.
things.
And then that was when you drop a microphone, it's like it's visual. But when you do it with, say, a clear container with gas and liquid in it, and say a spring connected to a ping pong ball, right? There's a buoyant force there. When you're standing on the reference frame, the buoyancy is there. As soon as you let it go, it instantly disappears.
I'm confused on this ping pong ball and spring. Like what?
Well, it's just a way to demonstrate the buoyant force.
In reality,
Okay.
electricity, when things are falling really fast at free fall or whatever, you don't actually measure acceleration on them, even though we're saying they're moving down towards Earth, which Globus would say is relativity. And Merl is saying this is a reason we have to look into Earth going up.
Well, is it just possible that whatever the effect is or the cause is also acting on the device that you're dropping? So if you're dropping an accelerometer and it doesn't read the drop, isn't it possible that it's just being acted on also? So like, I don't see a problem with that.
It's actually
it literally would read 0 if it's also being affected by gravity, because guess what? It's on Earth where gravity is.
Yes, some of that's true, I think, but it's above my pay grade because I'm not very good at relativity.
What are you saying? Like I often use this example. Like in another way to say that kind of is that if you're like, let's say you're standing on the top of a cliff and you're just standing there and you have an apple and you drop the apple's going to drop to your feet. But if you jump off the cliff and while you jump off the cliff you also drop the apple's just going to stay right next to you. It's not going to drop to your feet because you're both in free fall together.
But guess what? If you put a string at the top of the mountain before you jumped off, I promise you, even though you wouldn't measure acceleration, if you were holding a gyrus or accelerometer, that string would get longer.
Yeah.
But wait,
and the wind is going to accelerate when you jump off a cliff. It's like,
so just
you know what I mean? You hear the
device doesn't measure it. Just because the device doesn't measure it doesn't mean it's not happening. Because if you left a string up there and you were holding on to the other end, it would still get longer. You'd be able to know by visual evidence, by the measurement, by everything about it, that you went X amount of distance in X amount of time.
But like, if you drop something off a building, doesn't it accelerate till it hits terminal velocity?
Yeah,
but that has to do with like friction and the property, like all kinds of things, like electromagnetic things, static things. Has to do with different types of pressure. Like there's a whole myriad of variables, like coefficients, all kinds of stuff.
No, but you could have like a building, like a 10-story building. You could have like a ruler on the side of the building. Then you could drop an item from the top and measure, as it's falling right next to the ruler, and measure that it's accelerating, like physically and empirically. The reason one time Bacon described this with such perfection. Someday when we go back, somebody goes back and pulls out little clips from all these streams. Like what Bacon said was so on point. This one time, I don't even think I could word it as well as he did, but just describing how I'm not even going to try to describe it the way he did because he just worded it perfectly. But it's basically like an accelerometer is not going to detect free fall because like it's a device that is able to pick up acceleration in certain vectors. Because the way that it works is it has like two little like metal pieces that are sort of like the shape of an E. Like imagine like a uppercase E, and then you have another uppercase E that's facing to the left, like the the one E, the little horizontal lines go to the right, the other one they go to the left, and then they intersect, they interlock. So with those two little things, when you accelerate, they make contact. If you like accelerate horizontally, like you rush it forward or backward or even up or down, it's still going to accelerate because the little metal things are changing. But if you drop it, the metal things and the whole device are all free falling at the same rate. Therefore, it's not going to pick up that acceleration. So it can't pick up the free fall acceleration, but it can pick up forced accelerations in different vectors. That doesn't mean that something's not accelerating when it falls. It just means that that particular device, with the way that it has two little metal contacts, the fact that free fall, everything's going to fall at that roughly 9.8, those metal pieces are going to fall together at 9.8. So it's not going to be able to pick up the acceleration of free fall because of the fact that that particular way that accelerometer device works is the metal things are going to be falling at the same rate. Therefore, they're not going to touch when they're falling. That doesn't mean it's not accelerating. It means that that device is not picking up that acceleration because of that free fall state. It's kind of the same on the globe too, actually. Like in a way, like the general was kind of the same concept, which is why when Bacon said it the way he laid it down, because it's also relevant for the globe model.
If you took an accelerometer and you just had it in your car, and your car was going at a constant rate, would it pick up that speed?
No, only the change.
Right, only the change. Now it's different because sideways it'd be constant, and gravity would be acceleration, right? Because there's some kind of force that's trying to equalize on its descent down. Something is causing this downward thing. Now, I'm not claiming to know what that is, okay? But it doesn't mean that I can't just accept it for what it is. You know, like clearly whatever is acting on yourself or anything that is in free fall would act on the thing measuring the free fall. Clearly, you can't just escape the frame. It would measure the same thing also, which is 0. So, and we can verify this in a car, put accelerometer in a car, and if you're just going to constant rate, you don't get anything either.
Do you know that if you're accelerating through a vacuum, right, and you know that this is what he was trying to sort of bring to your attention a little bit last night, like with inertia. So say you have the point where your feet touch the ground, and then you could have your weight, like you're standing on scales and you can measure your weight, right? You've got that resistance. But if you're accelerating through a vacuum, there'll be like you have two objects, they come together, there'll be no weight there in the vacuum, right?
Can you try explaining that again? Maybe he said this while the plane was going overhead. I couldn't hear what he was saying. He picked like the worst time to say the stuff, but say that again one more time.
So say if you have two separate objects in the vacuum, and then one comes up to press against the other one, there would be no resistance in the vacuum. So it doesn't matter how fast you accelerate, there'll be no there'll be no, like where those 2 points meet, the two masses, there'll be no resistance.
Well, I mean, maybe it depends on the mass of the objects, but
well, there's no friction, there's nothing there, and this is a big part of the problem.
okay. Well, if I had an extremely massive object on the left and a very small object on the right, and the small object bumped into the massive object, they're their net mass would essentially have to be the calculation used to know how much distribution of force or resistance would be there. So I understand what you mean, like friction, maybe, like because there's no atmosphere.
Yeah, and air resistance.
But
like that's
have you ever bumped into a really fat guy and you just kind of bounce off?
Yeah. I mean,
At a
I know this.
concert.
I know this is hard to get you. Like when this first got brought to me a couple of years ago, I was very similar to you guys, and I even I've got to admit I mocked Elle a little bit as well. But so I understand that's there in it, but it's like an early stage of it. This isn't going away, guys. That's
well,
kind
what
of
is the point you're trying to get to? Maybe I cut you off. So you have two masses. There's no resistance, I guess. Go for it.
Well, so motion. What's being put forward is for there to be things like buoyancy. They're the effects of a force. So the idea is the force is motion, not a static world. Because we have it's like the idea is the earth is static, stationary, and everything's moving around it. And so this idea is that it's one interconnected system. Sun, moon, sky, luminaries are connected to the earth, and it's all moving as one. A complete system, like a UFO.
Yeah, that's what I've been imagining. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all interconnected. They're all the parts we observe are components of the same machine. But we don't know what it's moving through. But it's sort of easy for this side to ascertain that there's a force at play because matter can't move itself. And the only thing you're sort of left with is, so motion is there, and then there's unseen forces, like you're saying, like electromagnetics, inertia, potentially gravity still. So it's sort of like we're going into, and I agree with what you're saying too, Rig, that it creates more uncertainty and more questions rather than providing definitive answers and solving the conundrum of this realm. So
if you're saying the motion is the cause of the force, that's also another invisible force. So it's not like it's not more demonstrable. It's still invisible.
Well, and then you still have this other problem of like what is holding everything together anyway. And so if you consider that maybe this thing that is causing the force is the same like fabric of which allows matter to exist at all, then you would quickly realize that you can't actually separate the two. So yes, you can manipulate it with motion, but what allows it to exist is this fabric anyway. So you're asserting something that could be attributed simply to the fabric itself, and you're claiming it is the cause. It's almost like saying a deity is God instead of just acknowledging that creation is a thing. Like, I don't know, this gets down to like a biblical kind of thing. Like it's kind of like saying Jesus is God when Jesus is a man. Like, clearly whatever made this place made all kinds of stuff, not just man. So I just don't think God would be a man, and therefore I don't think motion would be gravity. I just don't think so. It's too simplistic.
Or a man.
I get what you're saying.
Like,
No,
it's not meta enough to really encompass the answer of what we're looking for. and it's been excluded by argumentation.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know if people do know my thoughts on that. I mean, if rhetoric could solve this and mathematics, it would have by now. And unless we come back to fundamentals, we're always going to be going around and around and around. But I appreciate that you went out there and at least, you know, because you didn't troll him, and I just think he deserves for him to put it forward. I've just heard a lot of people say that, you know, gatekeeper or agent, or even Pete Shea saying that. And it's just, he deserves better than that. I mean, he's been in this community a long time, but he's always sort of seen as this Scottish dude with tattoos who's a Satanist who doesn't really have anything to add. And it's just not cool. And I get it too. So I'm just, that's what I react to sometimes.
He sort of isolated himself. Instead of chatting to everyone, he became like a speaker who is angry with anyone.
Yeah. Quick to anger.